Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Josh Mansfield is out today. He and Andrew Fish did an awesome job on Tuesday getting everything covered from this week. Not a lot of additional news to speak of coming into today. I am excited to announce that we'll have an interview coming up with Jeff Spring, the CEO of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, where we're going to cover a lot of issues that have been swirling around in this off-season around the tour card, FPO registration, the AllStar Weekend and the format of the AllStar Weekend, and a whole lot more. So stick around for that. We'll also have a little bit of extra time talking about the media and about kind of the business side of the Disc Golf Pro Tour in our subscriber bonus segment with Jeff Spring. So make sure you sign up to become a subscriber. It's less than $4 a month. You can sign up at discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. So just really quick little point of news before we jump into this interview with Jeff Spring. The PDGA announced last week, actually, that they are seeking qualified volunteers for a couple of subcommittees that will report to the PDGA Medical Committee. Now, these are both very, kind of hot button issues that they're going to be addressing. The first is gender-based divisions, and the subcommittee is going to work to provide recommendations based on scientific analysis on the application of the recently released International Olympic Committee Framework on Fairness, Inclusion, and Non-Discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sex variations. This is kind of a long way of saying that the PDGA is looking again at its transgender policy, which we've discussed on the show recently with the IOC changes on how that's going to be kind of taken on a sport-by-sport basis. So the PDGA is looking at that anew now that the IOC rules have changed. They're also going to be taking a look at the prohibited substances list based on the latest list from the World Anti-Doping Agency. And they're going to start to try to align the PDGA with the IOC around prohibited substances. And that could include changes to the policies around alcohol and marijuana. Right now, of course, you cannot consume alcohol or marijuana in a tournament, but you also can't have any kind of public display or use of alcohol or marijuana at PDGA sanctioned events. And that is, we're kind of in an evolving world, particularly around marijuana usage, as to how that's going to be applied in the sports world going forward. I mean, of course, there's increasing legalization, decriminalization. I don't expect that they're going to allow competitors to use marijuana anytime soon, but I do think that it's possible that we could see advertising start to be allowed. That's kind of a gray area right now. Perhaps this update will address those things. But all they've done at this point is announce that they're going to create committees, and then we will get more information about the actual policy side of this sometime soon. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into this interview with Jeff Spring. Because here's the thing. Everybody's waiting to find out where's Katrina Allen going to sign, and we still haven't heard anything. So that remains the big piece left to fall in terms of this off season. So I guess we have to wait at least a few more days. So we will see when that comes out. Coming up next, I talk with Jeff Spring about all things Disc Golf Pro Tour 2022, 2023, tour card, etc. Stay with us. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. From 3D modeling to technical materials, Pound utilizes current technology to push product development beyond the current boundaries. Plus, they test multiple prototypes in the lab and in the field, and they build all their packs in the USA. Don't settle for a copycat. Get a Pound bag at PoundDiscGolf.com. Joining me now on the Upshot is the CEO and Tour Director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, Jeff Spring. Jeff, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Charlie. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again.
Coffee interview, as we've discussed beforehand. So we're both waking up, and as we get ready for the start of the 2022 season. I mean, it's really feels like it's just around the corner. I know we have about another month, but it sneaks up on you. So how are things going in preparation for this upcoming season, which is in many ways a new frontier for the Pro Tour, taking over the national tour and really being the single game in town for professional disc golf?
Yeah, it's going great. The off season is our busiest time. So the thing I like to mention when people ask me earnestly, as I'm assuming you are, how things are going is folks always say, is it nice to have some nice off time in the off season? And I just have to laugh and just let them know that it is our busiest time. And so starting before the Tour Championship, my focus ends up being solely on the future season. Right now, like I'm working on 2023, a little on 2024, but the main thrust of my energy is getting us launched for 2022. And it's going great. I think the biggest thing that we did in the off season is a bit of an organizational restructuring, mostly because we're doubling our staff. Despite my attempts to limit that, it looks like, basically we now have several departments and directors of departments that are, able to operate their department well under their own purview, and they need more staff to do so and achieve some of our big time goals in the next few years. So we've gone from 19 staff last year up to above 35, and it looks like we might land on 38, which is an exact doubling. But we're making our final hires now, so that's taking a lot of our bandwidth for the off season, but not all of it. We've got a lot of other plans in place. I'd say this is our third full season that we're going into. 2020 was the first year. Obviously, that was an interesting one. Last year had its own challenges. I feel that myself, our staff, were more prepared launching into this season than the past two. And each season after this, I really do feel that we'll continue to feel better and better as the season starts, and really have that kind of year-round schedule that really flows with a lot of just with a lot of ease. And we're looking forward to launching, and people are hitting the road in the next couple weeks.
Nice. So from 19 to potentially 38 people, I mean, that's a substantial pace of growth. Obviously, there's a lot to do. Are you comfortable with the financial side of that? Because obviously that's a lot of mouths to feed. And the tour is obviously, the Disc Golf Network has been a smashing success compared to the original projections. But, that's still a lot of money to have to outlay for salary, along with all of the other expenses of running the tour. Where are you in that kind of revenue path? Is it still being covered by investors? Are you feeling like you have that money coming in and there's enough cash flow to pay for that? Where are things there?
Yeah, I mean, we try to do our best to be transparent about our staff and the financial, state of the tour, just because we know there's plenty of people interested in the industry side of things. So I'll share what I can. We're doing great. Really, we are on our projected path. This year we are projecting a profit, and basically we had an initial investment in an amount of loans, and we're working on that startup and that kind of like startup investment. And then this is the year we see ourselves transitioning into less of a startup company after, we formed our business in late 2019, and now we're moving towards the maturation of our company. And that aligns with, the revenue that our company is bringing in through several different forms. It also aligns with the expenses that we have, not just in our staff, but we support events, we support, purses. We look to push the envelope on the Tour Championship when we can. And obviously there's a lot of contractors, via media, a lot of travel expenses. So it all works together. I can say that, our financial projections for the next year and the next few years, I feel are extremely achievable. and we hope to beat those. And as we do, we hope to continue to expand and professionalize our business, but also, work as a conduit to get some of the prize purses ticking up, to do more exciting things with our venues, and just to give back to the sport. So, our commitment as a business is basically invest. If we ever, have a profit, this year is our projected year, but we're going to put that right back into the growth of the company, the growth of the sport, the growth of our events. And I feel like we're very well positioned to do so this year. So we're feeling good and comfortable.
It's remarkable in some way, like the timing of when you came on as the CEO and there was the ownership changeover from Steve Dodge, and then disc golf doubles in size in 18 months. I mean, it's remarkable. Like, what a tailwind to have. Do you ever think about that? How like fortuitous the timing was? Not that disc golf wasn't growing anyway, but like obviously, all of the initial projections for a company to go from 2019 to 2022 and say, within 3 years we're going to be turning a profit. That doesn't happen for most startups. It takes 5-10 years.
Yeah, and just to that point, we'll watch and see what's necessary. Like if we get to a point and we have a decision on, hey, we'd like to achieve this goal and that goal. Our ownership group, our investor, Todd, our whole team will do what's best for the sport, best for the business, and not, like as you said, that's a quick turnaround from, an investment in loans to being profitable, and we're proud of that. I think we've managed our business well. In terms of the timing, I didn't start the pandemic, just for the, but we've overcome great challenges to find this success. Like we had a lot of hard decisions, and we had to figure out how to make it work in 2020 to even just try to enjoy, some type of operation of the tour. And I'll also say that moving into 2020, there was great growth because of the tour. I think the tour had momentum, but like even just looking at the investment support, regardless, of the pandemic that's required for a company of this nature, I feel like it would have been hard for Steve, regardless of what he's doing, unless he's landing like large investors to support, Disc Golf Pro Tour 1.0. So, I think that either way, our business would have succeeded and flourished. The growth that the pandemic ignited is, it's serendipitous, for our particular company. And, we're happy that we were able to manage our business in a way that was able to take advantage of that growth. But I think any company, in disc golf is probably excited to have that type of wave to surf for a bit, and it caused good problems, and it's continuing to cause good problems for manufacturers, trying to source, enough materials, and staff and equipment to produce, enough equipment to meet the demand. And you'll also see a wave of new companies. I think, that's something that I'm interested in. Maybe LT World can do a feature on, but how many disc golf companies are directly in the industry? How much, growth, have they seen, and how many people launched because of the pandemic and because of that growth? We're a part of that big picture, and I can say, it certainly seemed like a curse, but, looking back, in terms of just business, obviously not societal impact. It was a blessing for the industry, and the timing was serendipitous for sure.
So, over the last couple of years, really, but particularly this year, you're working with the PDGA, and the news comes out a couple months ago that the national tour is ceasing operations. The Disc Golf Pro Tour is taking over basically management of the professional side of the game, including helping with operations at PDGA majors for MPO and FPO. Obviously, that's a very significant milestone, something that I think people have been thinking about for some time, in some cases like more than a decade, thinking ahead to it. And now we're here. Does that put additional pressure on you and your staff? I mean, do you think about that? How like now it's contingent upon you, right? There is no national tour fallback. That like this now is the tour, and there's a lot of people who are counting on it being successful for the long term.
Yes and no. I mean, we certainly feel pressure to represent the PDGA, the brand of, the governing body of the sport well, and to continue growth and to deliver on the future that, we share in terms of envisioning the growth of the professional game. I would say no, because I think on the other side of the coin, regardless of this deal, we saw a path for growth for the tour that we were motivated to create. We wanted to kind of fulfill the vision that we have for where the tour can take the game, professionalizing venues, continuing the growth of the media, standardizing, professionalizing competition, everything that goes along with it. And Todd, our owner, and hopefully we'll have a joint interview at some point in the near future as well, to talk about this type of topic. But he's committed to ensuring the health and well-being of the tour regardless. But part of the PDGA deal, and kudos to the PDGA, is some assurances that the tour will operate for 5 years. And those assurances mainly come from our ownership group. And that, in terms of pressure, like, sure, we have pressure, anyway, but in terms of this relationship, the PDGA and Joe, and their board of directors, I think, did a great job ensuring that this partnership was cementing the viability of the tour for the foreseeable future. And, that's where, the nervousness or, expectation of like continuing the operation of the tour is actually, this deal is actually, lessened that because of the good work of the board, the PDGA, our ownership group, and coming together to say, hey, what are the things that we all can commit to ensure that the Disc Golf Pro Tour will see operation for a minimum of 5 years. And of course we see that, being, a low bar. We want to continue operation for, hundreds of years. Like you look at the sports leagues in the world, and some are, hundreds of years old. And, we hope we can chart a solid structure, to build on and, kind of pass on that tour brand to the next generation when the time comes.
So another change for this 2022 season is the new tour card, which we've talked about here on the show a little already. It comes with a slate of benefits for pros that qualified in the top 75 MPO, top 25 FPO, to be able to pay for this tour card and then get access to early registration and health and wellness benefits, etc. It's been popular. I'm curious to hear if it's even more popular than you expected. Almost everybody who was eligible signed up. You had a lot of European players sign up, even if they're only going to be over here for 5-6 events, something like that. And you had a lot of people requesting exemptions in order to be able to sign up. So let's just talk about that part first. Were you expecting to see this level of demand for this thing? And honestly, it feels a little bit like there's people who want to get it who can't. Mm-hmm.
I think the demand is slightly surprising. I did not know that the uptick would be, kind of so universal. And that was based on tour pass sales for the past, 4 years. We've run the tour pass sales for the past 2 years. The 2 years before that, the tour ran a tour pass. And it's
just quickly for the audience, the tour pass was an early registration package that allow you to get into tournaments early.
Correct. The tour pass is you had to buy at least a half a season. You had a minimum ratings requirement of only 970. And this is for people that say, yeah, I want to tour half the season. I want to package my registrations up beforehand and commit to that money up front. And we did limit that, to make sure that there was plenty of room in tiered registration. And we had the same limitations. It was 25 and 72 or 24 and 72 last year. The men's side filled up, and then tiered registrations happened. The women's side didn't quite fill last year. And so based on that, we looked at how often the tour pass holders were registering for an event. And out of 72 men and about 20 women, really only like we saw half to 2/3 registering for each event per se. This year, full fields. We expanded how many women can register through exemptions. Same with men, the European exemptions. And they all basically registered for the first wave of events, which was surprising as well. So not only the adoption of the tour card, but additionally the saturation of their registrations into events was much higher. They registered for almost everybody registered for almost every event on the Elite Series, which limited tiered registration a little bit more than we were expecting. But especially on the FPO side, like to have it not fill, last year with the tour pass, have about 20, and we could have probably given out 40, tour passes this year, around there. And I think we're at, 38 right now. Of course, we have, 5 women from Europe coming over, and they're not going to be at every event. We don't know their exact schedules, but I think Henna and Evelina right now are committed to like 3 or 4. And Kristen's going to do a larger tour. But, we also have a wave of women that are, above 900 that are like, I'm going to full-time tour now. And that's wonderful. It's like kind of a culmination of a lot of hard work from our team, our partners, women in the sport, to kind of what it feels like is that the viability of touring as a woman is now people believe that it's viable, in a way that perhaps they didn't in past years. And I think when, the 2 years of the Equitable Tour Championship payout, seeing Missy break, not Paige, not Kat, but Missy break the earnings, the yearly earnings record, there's a lot of things. Seeing the purses, like having FPO win $4,000 or $5,000 per event. We had 10% of added cash switched over to FPO, like all that stuff. This is kind of just kind of the result of a lot of hard work from our organization, like I said, our partners and other stakeholders in the FPO game. But it has presented, some challenges as well.
Yeah, when the registration opened up for this first wave of events, I think a lot of women were finding out they couldn't get in because the tiered registration didn't get down past the first tier because of the high signups for tour card. Lots of people, taking those signups then, and there was backlash on social media, and there was the petition circled about the lack of FPO spots offered, that, the increase percentage wise was not enough to meet the demand. Do you feel like, was this just you missed the demand, or did you make a mistake here in the initial? I know you've since opened up more spots at tournaments. How do you make sure that you're able to accommodate this growth in FPO, given that, there are far fewer spots available at tournaments than there are for MPO?
Yeah. So a couple things. We look at this as the here and now, the short term and the long term. We have plans for the short term and the long term. I think we like the way the tour pass registrations came in. We gave people a deadline, before the wave 1 registration came up, and we're surprised, basically the Monday before at how many people pushed late to register for the tour pass. We then looked at the tiers, understood that it was going to fill pretty quickly, and enacted our short-term plan. So I think on the here and now, I think the late surge and the understanding that, hey, these divisions are going to fill, we did misread demand slightly. And so we quickly enacted a short-term plan. So the day of registration, when we saw these fill, I basically talked to the tournament directors of the tour and said, hey, it looks like this is happening now. What we'd like you to do is push registration numbers higher, especially in the margins. This is something we've been discussing with tournament directors for the last year or two. Our short-term implementation happened on Wednesday, where we opened up, like 8 to 12 more spots in all of the Wave 1 events. So we raised everything to 44 and 48 in those Wave 1 events. And that allowed almost everyone to get off the wait list. I think the wait list in FPO ended up being 3, 2, and then for Texas States, there is some spots available still, and 4. So low wait lists. And then with the rest of the tournament directors, we engaged them and said, like, listen, we have a little bit more bandwidth, here, like, let's talk about it. And I'm happy to report we're able to average 60 spots in the FPO division for the second half of the season, basically Wave 2 and 3. So the second 2/3 of the season with minimal effect on MPO. Like we know our tee times, really well. We know the margins, and, I think that we're trying to have minimal effect on competition. Like we definitely don't want to continue to see backups in the events that have backups. We don't want to limit the MPO field beyond what we had set out, around 120 for MPO. And that's all achievable with the increased spots of FPO. We'll have to watch closely. And we're working on a new bad weather policy, which we'll talk about in the coming month before the season starts. But, we believe that we have the short term handled. Here's why. We have registration analysis from the past few years. And even with this surge, I feel comfortable at the levels we're at getting the majority, if not all, of the FPO competitors in. So, on a podcast like this, I would just, like to publicize, like, even if there are wait lists, the way we've seen wait lists work the last few years are they aggressively move. So even though it may be hard to pin your hopes on a wait list, they're going to move. Like we've averaged like 40 MPO players just gone, and burning through wait lists. And on the FPO side, only 3 Disc Golf Pro Tour events filled last year. We were able to get everyone off of those wait lists. So over the past 2 years where we've been overseeing the competition, there literally has not been an FPO player on the wait list at the time of the start of a tournament. So we've gotten everyone who's wanted to play in. We feel that's important because we don't want the registration to limit the growth of the division. But we also are watching and looking at like minimum ratings requirements now. And we should have some news on that in the near future. But, we're working obviously hand in hand with the PDGA on anything we do in this, right? We wouldn't make any moves without consulting them. And I'm excited about that new, tighter relationship with our organizations on multiple fronts. But that's besides the point. In this, we just want to make sure that the women playing, aren't, better off in another division. Right. And so like, as long as, we have, qualified women for the pro division, we don't want to restrict registration really at all. We want to see that division grow. In terms of the group, there was an open letter, sent to us. And, by the time we got it on Thursday, what I had just explained, we had already implemented. So basically we were, excited to say that we were aligned, and, really everything that the open letter was asking for, upon receipt, I was able to reply, we agree. and I think that's where, things will wrap up there. Basically, the one topic that we did discuss is communication, and making sure that burgeoning players have more access to information, and part-time pros. Like, I think that some folks weren't aware, like, that the Tour Pass, which is a benefit of the Tour card, was going to be so adopted. And they said, oh, well, can I get one? And that's where a late exemptions came in, requests. And we said, yeah, we've cut off exemptions. We did, I think, like 8 exemptions on the FPO side, and we had to pick, the 8 that were, most well suited for it, because we did want to retain some tiered registration, because this is a pilot program. We're phasing this in. We want to retain tiered registration, use this year to develop qualifiers, and then launch next year with more qualifying opportunities, not just for events, but for tour cards, and then through tour cards, tour passes. So what we've done is we created an open forum for Disc Golf Pro Tour competition updates and information. We've created an FPO only DGPT forum that's the more of a private group, and we're adding more burgeoning players into our kind of behind the scenes communication group. So we want to make sure everyone's informed. We did announce this before the start of the season. I've talked to you about it throughout the years. We've tried to publicize it, but we also understand not everybody's looking at our website or following podcasts, and we want to make sure that the communication to potential players is pervasive. I think once we align on that we're all moving in the right direction, in the same direction. But it was a bit of a surprise. Nobody reached out to us before that, so we were happy that it aligned, but also felt like we could have had somebody reach out and say, hey, what are you guys thinking about this?
So you talk about qualifying and people being able to qualify for the tour in the future. I think one of the big lingering question marks that I have about the tour card for 2022 is, what do you do if you are not a tour card holder and you want to qualify to be a tour card holder for 2023? I feel like it's a little tough to just say, well, good luck at tiered registration, depending on your rating, because there doesn't really seem like there's much of a mechanism right now for somebody to have a pathway to qualification besides getting lucky in tiered registration, playing well in those tournaments. Because in the future, I understand you want to do something like Korn Ferry Tour that the PGA does, that has some kind of process for bringing, second tier pros, some number of qualify and get their PGA Tour card. So that makes a lot of sense, but that doesn't exist yet. So what are those players supposed to do? Because it feels like the people who got a tour card this year are almost guaranteed to get one next year.
Yeah, no, I don't think that that's the case at all in terms of the guarantee. And so what we did last year, Charlie, is before the season, we laid out what the qualifying criteria was for the tour card, right? And we publicized that, and we'll do the same thing this year, right? So we haven't even put out terms of a 2023 tour card. So I know that perhaps there's speculation, and perhaps there's concern. And I understand where that comes from because you're just thinking about it. But we're excited to share that in the near future before the season starts. And yeah, it will be multifaceted approach. But we will use some qualifiers off of the Silver Series as well. We're working on some regional programs. We're working on, making sure that there are more qualifiers into tournaments in wave 2 and 3 for players that want to come play. But there is a good margin, of spots available on the men's side and the women's side looking forward. I do anticipate having a very, maybe total, probably 10 to 20 women on wait lists throughout this year. So if that's the case, everybody who's playing on the Disc Golf Pro Tour will have a great opportunity to play in most events, if not all events. On the women's side. On the men's side, we still have 40 plus spots, regularly in these registration windows. So again, players can get on through tiered registration and play. So that certainly is one element. There's also going to be different qualifiers to play. But I think that at the bottom line is that there will be access throughout the year to play Disc Golf Pro Tours, to play Disc Golf Pro Tour Silver Series. There's other metrics coming online that we'll release soon. And we feel like there's going to be plenty of opportunity for people that don't have a tour card this year. If they're committed, they can go out and earn it. We're also long term, and I don't know how long term, maybe next off season, considering a qualifying school type of, type of program where we have a couple weeks in tournament for people to earn their way in. I think that these are all good questions. But the bottom line is that there's going to be people that want to do it, that can't do it. And that's just where we're at in the point of the growth of the game. If you look at the PGA Tour, this is just how they've operated for decades, right? There's people that want to be professional golfers, that want to play on the PGA Tour, that want to play on the LPGA Tour, that cannot access the events because they haven't qualified. And there's that line. We're going to have a very, for 2023, very clear and what we believe is a very fair process for players that don't have a tour card to get their tour card. However, if there's 200 men that want a tour card and there's 20 tour cards, we're going to have 180 people that may be upset, that may be upset saying like, I could have done it, or there should be more spots. But the bottom line is that this is a pilot program. We're phasing it in. Whether or not there's a tour card or a tour pass, we need some mechanisms, basically to say this is how things are going to go. I think we laid that out last year. What we're going to do is lay out an even more detailed and even more opportunities for players. We're going to publicize that more. We're going to work with the PDGA to make sure that they feel good about it. And that they can help us publicize it, and then people can go get it this year. I think if you're, looking at the Disc Golf Pro Tour and you want a tour, you want to earn your tour card in 2023, you'll have the opportunity. However, I think that your opportunity is going to be way better if you're 1,000 rated or above. So if you're 950 rated, you might not have as good an opportunity. It may be harder to get into events. It may be harder to qualify for events, because you got to put in the work to get maybe your rating up. And so we will lean a little bit on ratings, but even if you've never played a PDGA event, we want you to have an opportunity to either qualify for events, get into events, prove your mettle, regardless of your rating. So there'll be, I think, opportunities regardless of your rating. However, if you do have a rating, it's going to be easier to register, easier to get into events, kind of like a USGA handicap. I think if you're a 15 handicap, you're not really expecting to go and qualify for anything. You might not even be able to get into a qualifying tournament because your handicap's not low enough. You got to be a scratch golfer to get into some PGA, qualifiers. So, I mean, this is multifaceted. It's going to be something that we keep our eyes on. I am very sympathetic and understanding of the issue. And so what we're going to do is clarify, broaden opportunities, and publicize. And we're excited to kind of like share that full gamut in the weeks before the season starts. Got it.
Makes sense. The exemption process, specifically for players who are not in the top 75-25 and were not from Europe. So sort of like your standard exemptions for, let's say, North American players. What was that? How were those decisions made? Because there were some names that got exemptions that weren't in the top 75 MPO, let's say, and didn't meet the rating requirement that was listed on the Pro Tour website, but still got an exemption. So was there external things that helped that decided those kinds of edge cases?
Yeah, there's a couple of factors. Number one, DGPT standing from the previous year, that did play in. Rating played in. What happened on tour, we had a case where somebody had a family emergency and was out for several tournaments, didn't meet the ratings requirement, but was very close on tour points. And so we allowed that exemption to process, just even projecting that, if this player was able to, stay in the event that they were in and play the next event or two, they probably would have been top 25 regardless of the rating. So we did make a couple exceptions on the rating requirement. And then additionally, past history of, pro performance, like we did allow a few folks that have majors to their name, that are interested, that weren't necessarily competing last year, so on and so forth. I think like past performance on the DGPT, dedication to touring, what they've put in the past, there are all several factors, and then timing as well, because like we got to the point where until, the last weekend before registration opened, we didn't have a lot of request. So, when I was looking at the list, I think, it was like, okay, we have 8, like this person, let's get this person in. And then on Monday, a few more came in. And so it was almost just that at a certain point, I was like, well, this person's like 6th on the list. And we have that spot to give. So let's give it, and this person has put forth like, a clear schedule. They've been a consummate professional. And even though they're a point or two around the rating, we didn't have the demand. And then, on Monday, I think a few people speaking to the communication were like, oh, okay, hey, let me ask for this exemption. We had already kind of closed the book on the number that we were going to offer.
Got it. So let's talk about the AllStar Weekend. Communication on that had been a little scarce. I mean, Kona Panis in her press conference with DD was kind of like made an offhand comment about the fact that she hadn't heard anything about the AllStar Weekend. We did hear about it last week, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot like what we saw in 2021. But we've also had some top pros, namely Paul Macbeth and Ricky Wysocki, say that they're going to skip it. Are you worried about this? Obviously, you're talking about probably the 2 biggest stars in the sport not coming to the AllStar Weekend.
Yeah, I'm not worried. No, Paul's not starting his tour until March. I think that at the start of the season, you probably, it makes sense that you're thinking about, hey, how do I want to launch this? He's got some family prerogatives. He's got his foundation. March is the time he's going to start. I wouldn't expect him to say, hey, I'm going to start my tour early just for, a month plus early, just for the AllStar Weekend. So, of course we'd love to have him, but I understand. This is an exhibition. We are rewarding the All-Stars that, qualified. And just to clarify, just if somebody doesn't come, that doesn't make them not an All-Star, right? Like if LeBron James gets injured, before the All-Star game in February, the NBA is still going to say, well, LeBron James is an All-Star, right? He's not playing and you put an alternate in. In this case, we are going to go down the alternate list for people that don't confirm. Ricky did confirm with us that he is coming. And then we've had a discussion since that he's unsure. So we hope that he'll come. I know that he is working on his bag. And again, if he decides to prioritize his training regimen before Vegas and making sure that he's dialed in with new discs, I think that's better for the tour for him to do that. I want him to prioritize, elite series competition, full DGPT events. We want Paul and Ricky to be at their best, to be coming into the season prepared. So more power to him is what I say. We have a fantastic and deep roster of talent. And I'm excited to see an Ezra Aderhold, as an alternate, which is somebody who has committed as an alternate. And that's a great opportunity for Ezra. And we have everybody else committed, at this point in time. I think that we haven't heard from Matty O. So I don't know about Matty O, but there's some great names next up, and what if Matty O, I've heard whispers.
It's on brand.
Exactly. So no, I mean, it's great. Obviously if for any exhibition, whether it's a celebrity pro-am or the All-Star Game, we want the brightest stars in the sport to come. But I understand that, hey, we're at the start of the season. If another priority comes up, that's understandable. But hey, we're putting these players up for 4 days in a great resort in Tucson. We're given a $1,000 appearance fee plus the chance to win more. And a lot of players are excited to come. We're doing some specialized media sessions where they're going to get some great content that we're going to be able to use to feature them throughout the year. And I think a lot of the All-Stars are excited. We also have a great format that we're really excited about. I can talk about it a little bit. But in terms of Rick and Paul, no, I mean, the players should do what is best for their careers in competition. That's where we're going to stand on that. And, hopefully Ricky feels good. Like we said, hey, let us know next week, and I think he's leaning towards skipping, but, we'll try to use our powers of persuasion and, But that said, not that much, right? Because we do want him to make the right call for him, and
Sure.
we'll say that for every player. And like I said, I mean, I'm thrilled to see the players that we do have coming to this exhibition. I think it's going to be great. In terms of timing, we did switch venues due to a course reservation that went awry, and we did let players know the date early on. I think when Kona said that, she knew the dates. We were just working on our backup venue, which we're really excited about. Big shout out to Jeremy Herr, who ran the Arizona State Championship and is working with us. Pete Ulibarri and Marty Capella from the Phoenix area and the team down there, I think, are going to prepare the course and put on a great show. It's a beautiful venue for this, so we're looking forward to it.
Just quickly, have any other players said that they're not going to make it, or have you had confirmations from everybody else?
So Kristen can't make it. Kristen's going to make it for the LVC. She, was going back and forth. I think that a lot of the players were committed to Disc Golf Con, including Kristen. I think so. When, that dropped, maybe it was like, this is now 2 weeks before LVC. But we're sticking with the date. And we're going to go down the alternate list for Kristen. So right now, Paul, and Kristen are the only confirmed no's. And I think that, we're kind of looking at the alternates from there. We'll announce in the near future, but I think we have like 21 confirmed, so out of 24. Yeah.
You mentioned the format. How is it going to be this year compared to last year?
So yeah, this is exciting. It's brainchild of Mahmood, who was on recently, Mahmood Barani, our media director. But we are going to have a draft. The 1 seed and 2 seeds that are present will draft their teams for men and women. So it'll be 6 men versus 6 men, 6 women versus 6 women. And it will go ahead and basically have a little mini Ryder Cup, where we're going to do stroke play, but you win your match, you get a point for your team. So we'll have, best shot doubles on Saturday, best shot singles on Sunday. And on Friday, we're going to have some skills competition that count towards this. And then the winning team will get a bonus payout. And it'll be, I think it'll be really fun. So when you draft your players, you're going to have to draft people with the thought of, hey, I'm going to put somebody in putting, 2 people in putting, 2 people in accuracy and shot shaping, and 2 people in distance. So like you have to kind of draft your team thinking like these 2 are going to distance, these 2 are going to shot shaping and accuracy, and these 2 are going to putting. But we're going to stream the draft live for Disc Golf Network subscribers. And then we'll have some fun matches where the captains will get to pick who's in what seed and whatnot. So
this has been an excellent addition to the NBA AllStar Game, which I'm sure was inspirational to Mahmood for this.
He's a big Bulls fan. Yeah. And obviously a big NBA fan. So no, I think it'll be fun. And it really aligns with the exhibition, but I think that there will be great competition too. And I hope it's a fun weekend.
So looking a little ahead to 2023, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you're already working on planning for next year. I want to talk about the Pro Tour side of that, but I also want to talk about the World side of that. You're going to be running Worlds up at Smuggler's Notch. And so it returns to Vermont. It was the only bid. So I've been curious about this. Did the PDGA reach out to you and say, hey, we really need somebody to run Worlds in 2023? Or did you just happen to put in a bid and you were the only one?
The second. The second, yeah. We put in a bid coming off of GMC last year. The resort reached out. Not reached out. I was there. But they said, hey, let's talk about bringing a major back. The disc golf operation there was excited about the potential, and we put it together and thought, hey, it's going to be best to do Worlds, do Pro Worlds. That's kind of what we've done, Pro Masters Worlds before. And we decided, hey, let's make a bid. Just for the record, I'm aware of 3 other bids that basically got to the finish line, and I think where basically the PDGA said, you need a little bit more of this, you need a little bit more of that, you need a little bit more time. So, I know, like, and that's not from the PDGA telling me, but like I'm talking to other TDs that I was aware of. So while maybe there wasn't an official submission, there was I think a healthy number of areas and TD event teams like interested. So I think that, putting that out is a little, I'm not sure why you would share that information if not necessary, but it's a little misleading, honestly, because there are several entities, and I expect some of the entities that, I was aware of, like, interested to bid in the near future. And I think that there's a lot of great venues for, the most important event in our sport. We're really honored and proud to bring it back to what we feel like is one of the best destinations in the world for it.
Yeah, beautiful pair of courses. Are there plans to make any changes? I know it's an early time to ask this question, but course changes. I know people have asked already about T-pad changes. What's anything in store on that front?
Yeah, we'll have new T-pads over the course of this year and next before Worlds for Brewster and probably then for Fox for the Worlds. But for this year's GMC, there'll be new T-pads on Brewster. For the Worlds, I believe there probably will be new T-pads on Fox, although, most people, have given good reviews to those T-pads in the near future, but I think we may redo them. I do have some ideas on design. As we've talked about in the past, it is a sensitive ecological area, and any changes to the course design are going to go through a permitting process with the resort. And I hope to achieve some modest design changes where I feel are appropriate, but that won't be known until we go through the process. I know the resort, we're going to be talking this year about that though. And then in terms of like infrastructure, we're hopeful to have some infrastructure upgrades that we've been talking about for a few years for the facility in regards to kind of transportation, parking, amenities on site. But we're kind of in those discussions, and we'll present to the resort and we'll see what we can get done. But it's going to be good for the resort. The courses, I think that they're going to be upgraded and kind of fitted for the future, if that makes sense. And it's going to be hopefully the best Worlds yet, which every single Worlds should be the best Worlds yet with the growth of the sport. I'm thrilled to go to Emporia for Worlds this year. I know a little bit, of how Doug Bjerkes, Jackie, who's the TD of the DDO this year, and the whole DD team are approaching this year's events, and they're just the best. They're gonna have a fantastic rollout of Worlds in 2022.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting to see these upcoming Worlds. One thing you just mentioned it. We're going to Emporia twice this year, first for the DDO, then for Worlds later in the summer. That won't be happening in 2023. There will be no GMC and there will be no D-Glow because Toboggan is hosting the Champions Cup, the new PDGA major that starts this year down in Georgia. So you mentioned to me when we talked a couple weeks ago about this issue that means that there's going to be some new events cycling onto tour in 2023. What can you tell us about the 2023 tour? Its shape, maybe what some of those new events will be or new courses will be. I think it's interesting to know that you're already almost to the finish line of planning next year's schedule.
Yeah, I'm working with Mike Downs and the PDGA to make sure that the majors, align with the tour as best as possible. Majors get priority, so if there's a date, but we are trying to, they're great now, it's a great process looking at hey, when are we in this region, versus pulling people across the country. So I do feel that we have, a really nice schedule planned. I'd like to finish it on the sooner side, than the later side. I think we're looking for in early summer, ideally, announcement. Of course, the major dates will go first. But I see a couple new events coming on. I can't really speak to what events at this point, but some of the Silver Series this year, we're thinking about, which ones can we evolve, which ones do we cycle in and out, and there's some new venues that we've been working with and talking to. So I can't drop any spoilers right now, Charlie. So I apologize about that, but all I can say is that we're getting closer. It's good to be planning this now as opposed to in the summer. I'm hopeful that early summer, late spring, we could maybe even announce a schedule. I know that the majors will be announced soon.
So back to 2022, what can fans expect this year that's different, let's say, from 2021?
So there's several things. We are working on implementing a number of event and upgrades and amenities for players. There's going to be more defined spectator, interactions, experiences, places for autographs. So you're going to see more staff, more communication, more signage, more professionalism on site. There's going to be more VIP areas. There's going to be more, food and drink and beverage. There's going to be more fun and games at events for spectators. In terms of competition, though, we're focused on just continuing to ensure that our courses check every box, that they're professionalized, that they're appropriate challenge for both the men's and women's field. So no real change there other than we're going to have a bigger team, hopefully doing a better job, leaving less stones unturned. We are growing, though, the spectator program, and so there's just going to be more to it this year. I would anticipate that we'll have a lot of sellouts at events. So if fans want to buy tickets, stay up to date. We already released Wave 1 of tickets for those Wave 1 of Elite Series events. We'll release more tickets February 7th. We'll release more tickets in March. And I really do think that we will see sellouts and then a secondary market of tickets. And with that, we're going to provide a better fan experience. We're going to provide more money to the purse for players. We're going to provide a few events will have a couple bigger upgrades. We're working to bring live music to more events where it's like a ticketed, concert experience. If you look at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, which is happening the same weekend as the Super Bowl and the same weekend as the AllStar Game, they have some really big performers that are like tied in with certain tickets. So if you get a VIP ticket, sometimes it will include like a live concert experience. We're also doing our best to bring an upgraded food experience to a couple events. We've got something cooking that I hope we can get to the finish line with our friend Andrew Zimmern. But
oh, wow.
Yeah, if we can do it, we'll be excited. We've had a couple talks and we'll see. That will only be at a few select events if we're able to do it. And, I don't want to get too out over my skis on that one, but that's just a picture. Hopefully that paints it well, but any other specifics that you're kind of wondering about?
I guess maybe the only other question would be on the media side. I don't think, have we seen a media announcement yet for 2022?
No, we're in the final stages of discussing, the deals. Like right now we have general terms of agreement with all of the potential media partners, or most of the potential media partners. If we're not quite there, we're close. For Elite Series, we're almost, there on Silver Series. And, as soon as those contracts are finalized, we'll announce them. I anticipate at the end of this month, really as soon as possible at this point. But generally we know what's going to happen, and we'll be excited to announce that. I don't think it'll be extremely dissimilar than last year. I think that in some cases we're working closer and more integrated than ever with media teams. The Disc Golf Pro Tour and the Disc Golf Network are. In other cases, we have the evolution of what a media contract is. And I'll leave it there. We can talk about this when the news drops, but we've been working really hard on this one. And I'm excited. I think the media contracts and the way we're approaching, we're evolving our media policy. And this is something that your listeners probably don't want to hear about unless, you do the subscriber bonus or, the money line. But yeah, I would say, regardless of the details, I will say that the media contracts are professionalizing in a similar way, maybe to the player contracts. So there's a lot more to them this year, and we're going through and really kind of charting a path towards the future. But I don't anticipate huge changes for the fans based on what they saw last year.
Sure. Well, how about you stick around for 15 minutes for the subscriber bonus segment and we talk about those media contracts?
Okay, that sounds good, Joe.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking for through all these issues. Obviously, everybody's super excited for the start of the season. What event are you most excited for this year?
Green Mountain Championship as always, but I have to say that, but I will say the Portland Open. We're going to do 4 days, 2 days at Blue Lake, 2 days at Glendoveer, and it's going to be, there's going to be an AM side associated with it. It's going to be fantastic. That will be, if I have anything to say with it, the biggest event in disc golf in the near future.
Well, it's a great city for disc golf. I believe Portland is the city that I played my first round of disc golf with an actual disc golf disc. So
that's why we're doing
it with those positive memories.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. We'll talk to you again in the subscriber bonus segment. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
CEO and Tour Director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, Jeff Spring, with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. Thanks again to Jeff Spring for stopping by. Always great to be able to catch up with him on all things Disc Golf Pro Tour. So, before we sign it off, just want to say, head over to the website, discgolf.ultiworld.com, and vote in our Shot of the Year tournament. There are 4 shots left. It's the best air shot of the year, the best roller of the year, the best putter of the year, or putt, I should say, and the best roller of the year. Look, we all know it's going to win. But don't you want to just go watch those shots again? And seeing James Conrad's shot once again, just, man, the goosebumps every time. So, you don't have to vote for that one. I would be very shocked if it did not win. I put my vote in. I don't think that there's a question. That's probably going to win shot of the decade. But go take a look at all 4 shots. Mattio's roller is something special. So you can find that on the website. Voting closes at the end of this week. That is going to do it for this edition of the Upshot. Thank you so much for joining us. Josh and I will be back together next week. Looking forward to getting back into the regular rhythm of the show. And so we will talk to you then right here on the Upshot.